Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere.
Welcome everybody back to the Pursuit Pod, and first off, Happy New Year, everybody. So we got a long, nice, productive 2026, probably going to be the most productive of my life, just through working with, obviously, the podcast, the website. I just started up a new media Instagram. I'll put that in the bio, or I'll put that in the description, so please go follow that. More stuff for LinkedIn, more stuff just with projects and everything, and we're going to have work with Clemson Video eventually towards the end of January into the beginning of February, helping out with the camera operation and obviously more stuff for the Tigers. So I hope everyone has a great new year. I hope everyone had a great winter break and just great holiday season. I know it was definitely a nice, restful one for me to see everyone again, but it's the new year. Let's get right into it with our first Roundball Rock of 2026. So to start out, obviously, Boston Celtics, we got to talk about Jaylen Brown. He's the third in the MVP race right now. Probably the hottest button topic of the week, in all honesty. He is the Celtics back at third in the East, even with Jason Tatum being out. And he's averaging career highs of 29.5 points per game. Career highs with assists with 5. He also has 6.4 rebounds along with it. He's a high of 49.5% in field goal percentage, career high PRE, or per in 23, and all of this comes without a true whistle. I mean, obviously, if SGA, Nikola Jokic, those guys, they even get slightly touched, and they're going to get a foul called on them or against them. So Jaylen Brown is doing this without a true whistle. He's doing this without getting any calls. There was the controversy with the San Antonio Spurs game recently against the Celtics, where there was just no calls in the clutch in the Celtics' favor. Chris Forsberg on X reported that Brown is third in the NBA in total drives, but is only fouled 8.9% of the time. The Celtics are actually 30th in free throw attempt rate, as well as last in the league with free throw attempt rate per game. And it's just absurd, especially with, a team that is so coveted like this and a team that is just finding so much success. They're third in the East, and they're doing this all without a true whistle, without true foul calls being called against them. They're doing this the ethical way. Jaylen Brown is probably the most ethical hooper in the NBA, if you really want to use that term. And we're seeing so much with we're seeing so much of that dichotomy with the rise of just any touch being a foul. Obviously, I don't even know if it's flopping per se, but more just, I saw a lot of it last night. As the time I'm recording this with the Spurs Thunder game, where you see SGA, and he might be the main issue when it comes to that kind of topic. He was driving in towards the defender, dribbling in, and then he literally would just jump into them, toss up a shot. It would be like way off, and they would call the foul. He'd be at the line. I literally saw him do that, and then just saunter over to the line with his head down, and that's just absurd. I think that's just it's really tearing away the ethicalness of the game. I mean, I know I'm using that word a lot, but it's really just tearing away the fun of the game and really just showing that only so many players can get true buckets now. And Jaylen Brown being one of them, he is probably the Pursuit Player of the Week, maybe the month so far. And as much as I am a Sixers fan, I don't like the Celtics having success. Good on the Celtics for doing this all the old-fashioned way, especially with Jaylen Brown. And they're going to be a hard team to beat when Jason Tatum's back too. So, to get into some kind of unfortunate news, another Anthony Davis injury. This time it's his hand. He denies the claims that there is going to be a surgery on it, but the thinking is that surgery will lead to a return when it comes to a playoff push, and it's going to boost his trade stock as well with the deadline coming up. And there happens to be really no concern to trade him before the deadline. As I was doing my research for this episode, I actually got an alert saying that the Mavericks don't really plan to trade him, which, I mean, there is a certain level of, Kyrie's going to come back eventually later in the season. They have to see what they can do with the guys they have. And, I mean, they're not doing the worst They're absolutely not at the top of the league. Not really. They're fighting for a play-in spot. I mean, Cooper Flagg's on the rise, but that team just overall, like, they might need Davis. I don't know what they're going to get for Anthony Davis, especially with the Trae Young stalemate being over there in Atlanta and with Washington. And I mean, the Raptors and the Hawks were interested in Davis, but maybe the Bucks take a swing. I'm really curious to see what the trade offers would be from the Bucks to get Anthony Davis, and see if maybe they could pair Davis and Antetokounmpo, especially with, I talked about this a few episodes back with Antetokounmpo. He has his own trade market right now, and there's still the question of if he'll be traded away. I think that if he gets traded away, it's going to be a deadline deal. I really don't see Giannis getting traded away at this point of the season, especially if it wasn't already. But just to kind of add some salt to the wound, no pun intended, because we're talking about injuries, I ran into an article about Anthony Davis's injury history. Now, this guy has had 51 body parts, 51 different unique body parts being affected in injury. So I'm going to tell you the top 15. I was originally going to tell you the top 51, all of them, but that was going to be like another 10 minutes to this episode. So the top 15 for Anthony Davis's injury history in terms of frequency of the injury is: number 1 is foot, 55 times, ankle, 24 times, Achilles, 20 times, back, 20 times, adductor, 18 times, knee, 18 times, calf, 16, shoulder, 14, the plantar, 9, thumb, 8, the wrist, groin, elbow are tied at 7, and then eye and finger are tied at 6, and the rest are 5 or below. But it's just absurd that, and it's just really derailed his career. And he's a Hall of Fame player, top 75 guy. He's an NBA champion, multi-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year here and then. And Anthony Davis he is a game-changing player, and he is one that you want on your team. He's a guy that you can rely on until it comes to injuries, until it comes to availability. And it's kind of the issue with almost like Embiid. It reminds me of Embiid. It reminds me of even like, when we go farther back, Derrick Rose. Those guys are reliable. When they play, they'll put up numbers. They'll lead your team to a win. They'll be, championship, playoff winning pieces that you can add, and you can, make a lot out of them, and they are productive. But when you just keep getting injured, especially, 51 different body parts, it's not just the knees like Embiid. It's not just the foot like Embiid. It's everything about Anthony Davis. I mean, I said the eye was 6 times. He has the glasses now on the court, and it's just like, you almost have to wonder, especially because he's going to get into his older years. One, how productive can he be? I mean, he's proven that he can be productive, but how productive can he be in 2 years? How much are teams going to want to trade for him? Especially with, he's getting hurt all the time, and he still is, unfortunately. And it's just, Anthony Davis is probably the biggest enigma of the NBA. He's probably the biggest curious case in the modern NBA, especially of his entire career. And, the Lakers had it lucky, that final 2 years in the Pelicans into that first 2 years in the Lakers, that was really just the prime of Anthony Davis, and he was just unstoppable. And who knows if we're going to get back to that level. I want to see him thrive in Dallas. I actually root for Dallas when it comes to hopefully making a playoff run, because I like Cooper Flagg. I like Kyrie when he will come back. I like Anthony Davis. I've always liked that Mavericks team, especially when they had Luka and they had that, I think it was 2024 championship year, 2024, when they competed for the championship. And it's just a shame to see him kind of regress into this guy who's just, can you trust him to be healthy? And that might be the killer that doesn't get him a trade. And that might be the killer that led to the Mavericks making the decision that, hey, we're going to hold off on the trade talks and we're going to keep Anthony Davis with us. Now, for the final 2 topics on Roundball Rock, I want to get into an article that I ran into. And we always talk about guys, especially I talked about guys at the beginning of the podcast earlier in the year, talking about Ron Holland, Alex Sarr, guys that were going to take a leap this year. Now let's talk about players that are not taking a leap. We've talked a lot about Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Michael Pina of The Ringer made this amazing article talking about the players who have taken the leap. And I'm just kind of rephrasing his words here, so all credit to him. But Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Grizzlies. Ja Morant, Obviously, we touched on him earlier in the season talking about if he even has a trade market, if it's even possible. And I thought it wasn't possible for Trae Young either, but he got traded for a deal of all time. I'm not going to say my thoughts. That's a little out of date now, but Ja Morant, he's back to less than 20 points per game. His true shooting percentage is just absolutely terrible. In fact, an interesting stat that the author of this article actually brought up was that the Grizzlies' offensive rating is 5.1% below the league average when Morant's on the floor. And it actually goes up 4 percentage points when he's not on the floor, which is just absurd. You'd think that, your star guy, your franchise guy, you put him on the floor and he's going to have this immense offensive capabilities and this immense impact on the floor, but they're worse with him on the floor. And then you got the other star, Jaren Jackson Jr., who is down in all major stats, down in PER, down in PER. He's undisciplined, whole bunch of fouls that he wouldn't do before. He has an inconsistent three-point shot. No, he's not drawing any fouls, and he's negative 5.5 points per 100 possessions. And it's a disaster in Memphis. It's just a disaster in Memphis when it comes to star players. Those guys got to get out of there. I do think that we're going to see a Ja Morant trade before the deadline. I can't even begin to predict what it will be, but Memphis is burning. Memphis is burning down soon, and it's going to be something that you're going to have to watch out for when it comes to looking into trade talks, and that's really going to be the defining characteristic of this trade cycle for this season. Now I want to talk about Evan Mobley from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, they're having a down year. Just overall, the production isn't there. They kind of lost their spark that made them the best in the East last year. But Evan Mobley, he's getting more touches. He's getting more usage. But he's a less aggressive offensive playing style. And, you just need more out of him he's a player that is demanding double teams. He has gravity, which we're going to touch on later. He's attracting a lot of one-on-one. And, the system in Cleveland is now more evolved around him and his tools than it is just on Donovan Mitchell. And he's just not making that leap. He's falling behind. And it's a shame because he's a guy that's a brilliant two-way guy, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and he's a young star that really can develop into maybe the best two-way player in the NBA, but he's just not there. And it's a shame because he's had 2 great seasons before, 3 great seasons before, and he's just on the downward trend here, unfortunately. A big name that everyone likes to bring up when it comes to, bench guards, but something's going on with him. Rob Dillingham, he has a 38% field goal percentage right now when it comes to shots at the basket. He just has, weird intangibles with bad passes. He picks up his dribble too early and then just gets caught. He passes up open threes. There's just no confidence in Rob Dillingham. And this is a guy that, you see so much speculation about him kind of taking a leap as a player, him kind of, expanding his game, him really blossoming into what people have thought about him for years and years before he was even thought about in terms of going to the NBA. And it's just, he was a generational prospect at one point, and now it looks like he can't even hold an NBA position. So what'll happen with him? We still got to just wait and see. And, there's always the tale of what could be going on there, but I don't know. It's scary to see that Rob Dillingham is just on the downward trend, and he is just regressing, and he's so young. So who knows? He just needs a change of scenery. Maybe he needs to get somewhere else, but it's not looking good right now. Finally, I want to talk about Paolo Banchero, who has been dubbed PB No J, guy who just is not a clutch player, at least according to fans, and he is now the scapegoat of an injury-ridden Magic team that is just urging for a breakthrough. His true usage rate is down 11.5%. And which is, it's not a terrible thing. It's good to reduce the weight from his shoulders for the Magic. But he's 246th in half-court shot making. And for those who need that, the context of that stat, that's player efficiency when you adjust for how difficult field goal attempts are. He's 246th in that. He's not even a top 200 guy. Not even a top 100 guy like we thought he was. When you don't have that efficiency, and you're not, making the tough shots, you're not making, clutch shots constantly, how can you be a star guy? How can you be a franchise guy? And it's just a shame because this is a guy that's number one pick. He had a great season last year. The Magic are still on that fringe of trying to make it to the playoffs and kind of not being locked into that spot. There's too many injuries. There's too much back and forth on what their true potential is. Paulo Banchero needs to step it up. And if he doesn't, especially with the fact that they actually have, the usage rate is more scattered around the team, even with reduced weight, he's got to figure it out, and he's got to make his playing time efficient. I want to finish out Roundball Rock with discussion about a new breakthrough in NBA statistics, which you guys have probably heard about or have tried to, calculate on your own. But that's the gravity stat. This is officially a NBA recognized statistic that they will use, on their websites by the guys who actually crunch the numbers. But gravity, supposedly, it quantifies how much a player pulls a defender out of the normal assignment. So basically, it tells you which guy. I would almost say that, unironically, it's which player has the most aura on the court. Which players, just the fact that they're even on the court, maybe they don't even have the ball, maybe they do have the ball, they're just going to draw a double team. How likely can they draw a double team? Which players force defenses to react to them? So for the stat, 0 overall is a league average. So that means you're just a rotation guy. You're not pulling anyone in. But on the off-ball statistic, if you have above 80, that means that you're feared. And overall, the gravity stat, it compares defensive pressure score to the pressure that they actually draw. So it's almost like expected versus what they actually do. And they kind of just find the middle, and that's where your gravity is. So just to kind of end the section off, I'll list off the leaders in gravity to kind of put it into perspective for any of those guys that are listening out there that enjoy advanced statistics. So, Steph Curry leads the league right now, 20.2, which is no surprise. You don't even want him to, because he can shoot from anywhere. Kevin Durant has 17, which makes sense. He's one of the best scorers in NBA history. He's pretty feared for the fact that he can really shoot from anywhere. He can drive. His mid-range is unbeatable. Luka Doncic was 16.2. Again, one of the most feared offensive players in the league. His defense is getting slowly better also as well. So, he's fourth in MVP odds right now too. Anthony Edwards 15, which he's making his way to be the face of the league. So James Harden 14.2, self-explanatory. SGA 13.6, which is the thing about SGA is how much will that gravity stat go down with the whole foul baiting, with amount of free throws? How much are they going to want to almost do an unorthodox playing style of trying to get away from him while still applying defensive pressure on his game? That's a lot of statistics talk, but let's get into more reactionary stuff with 4th and 4. Wild card weekend is over, and there were some ups, there were some downs. I would actually say that there was a lot of downs for me as a fan, for me as someone that was watching and analyzing the games. All the teams that, besides the Bears and Texans, all the teams that I actually wanted to win in Wild Card Weekend lost. And obviously we're going to get to the Eagles later, and there's a lot of conversation and a lot of talk to get done with them. But Wild Card reactions, Los Angeles Rams win 34-31 at Carolina. And my reaction to this, Bryce Young is here. I've been saying this, the two most talked about players on this pod so far since I've started doing it have been Bryce Young, Matt Stafford, and just in general, Bryce Young and the Rams, and I guess the Seahawks too, but we'll talk about them later. So, all I can say, and this is what a lot of reactionary pieces and articles talking about this team were saying, but, thank you, Panthers, for making this interesting and starting out the wild card weekend with just, hey, any team can do it this year. It just proved that this year is wide open. Who knows? Maybe the Panthers take that win and they end up beating the Rams, the Rams are what, third in the odds for the Super Bowl. And it's just absurd. This team that statistically they probably should not even be here, they're here. They're here and they almost won. They lost by 3 points. But overall, just thoughts on the Rams. Matt Stafford, he just needs to play with more patience. And I think, I know it's Bryce Young, and I am pretty high on Bryce Young, and I think that he's going to become, a more praised player in maybe 2-3 years. This Rams secondary, this Rams defense is highly beatable. And how much faith do I have in them to go all the way to the Super Bowl like I did earlier in the year? Their offense is amazing. The offense is, that is the Los Angeles Rams, but it was a very, very fun game to watch. And if you want to talk about more fun games to watch, keeping it in the NFC, let's go up to the North. Bears win 31 over the Packers, who scored 27. Again, Caleb Williams is legit. He's a quarterback that I have rooted for since he was in college. Number 1 overall pick. I've always been pretty high on Caleb Williams. He was my, obviously, those who watch, those who pay attention to my fantasy segments, he was my fantasy quarterback all year. And he's absurd. He is the leader of these cardiac Bears. And the future just looks bright in Chicago with their coaching, with their players, with their offense they have with Rome Odunze, and then Caleb Williams is doing his thing, and he just looks, calm, collected. He still makes some shaky throws here and there, but he led this Bears team back against a Packers team that just probably shouldn't have been up in the first place, but they were still up, and they blew this lead. And is Matt LaFleur done in Green Bay? I mean, how worth it is it to make him a lame duck coach? He just has, predictable play calling. He sends running backs into stack boxes. He's a lack of killer offensive instinct. Obviously, Green Bay is injury-ridden, especially with their defense, but there's just so much undisciplined play. And especially, coming out of the timeout, you don't have a set plan. Matt LaFleur he doesn't have a scheme in Green Bay. And it's a shame because Jordan Love is a talented quarterback. It's a shame because this team overall is talented, from the receiving core to, Micah Parsons on the defense. This is a team that, if they won against the Bears, as much of a shock it would have been, seed-wise, it wouldn't have been that much of a shock based on the talent. But the Packers dropped this one, and it's going to be a story to follow about Matt LaFleur and what's going to happen with him. Bills win 27 to Jags 24. I would say that this is the only real upset of the playoffs in my eyes. I mean, obviously, people were not that, tuned into the Eagles game. People didn't care and think the Eagles were going to go far. So I don't really know if that can count that one as an upset as well. But, the Jaguars they had this amazing turnaround this season. Trevor Lawrence is an MVP candidate. I think he should be an MVP candidate. I think he's third in the voting. He will be third in the rankings. He will have a good name stay up there. But, Liam Cohen just turned around Duval this year, and it's probably the best story in the NFL this season, and Trevor Lawrence is playing the best football of his NFL career. I'm going to have a Tiger article coming out about how he changed that style, how he became so much better. This is the thing. Josh Allen is inevitable, and it really is just their AFC to lose, especially with no Burrow, no Lamar Jackson, no Patrick Mahomes. He's the only true elite, quote-unquote, quarterback. I mean, you could talk about Drake May, but he's the only real, elite MVP-level quarterback left that has had playoff success, that has had playoff experience, and enough of it. And there's no Arrowhead Stadium that you're going to have to run into. Obviously, you're going to be on the road the entire playoffs. You're the 7th seed, unless, I don't know, somehow you run into, I guess you're going to be, if you make it all the way, you're not going to have a home game. So that's going to be tricky. We don't really see 7 seeds go that far, but we've seen 6 seeds go far in the old playoff format, so this is the Bills' AFC to lose. Pats, Chargers, Pats won 16-3 in a really boring game. Drake May is a legit quarterback. You can see that by the numbers and, just by the eye test, but he didn't really have a perfect or real promising playoff game there. And, I mean, let's just, I think the biggest story about this, and this might be the most passion I get on this podcast when talking about non-Philadelphia, but let's quit with Justin Herbert narrative. Yeah, he's being wasted. He has no offensive line, 30 pressures, 11 QB hits, 6 sacks in that game, but the film was just egregious. Ladd McConkey was open half the game for short, just quick pass, and he is just, every year he chokes. It started out with that Jaguars game in 2022 when Trevor Lawrence was literally handing them the game on a silver platter, and then Justin Herbert chokes it. I don't have any faith in the Chargers in the upcoming years, unless they really build up an amazing defensive unit, or they actually get an offensive line around Justin Herbert and just, I don't know. I think it's too many years wasted right now in his career for him to actually go anywhere. Let's quit with the Justin Herbert narrative. Let's quit with it. I don't want to hear that he's better than Jalen Hurts. I don't want to hear that he's better than Drake May. I don't want to hear that he's better than Joe Burrow. Let's stop with this. The Chargers got owned this game. The pass defense looked incredible, but there was just a lack of drive within the Patriots offense. Really inconsistent throws by May, which is just odd. Maybe it's the regular season magic wearing off. And this was a game that it was based on the complete shutdown of the Chargers offense. But with Drake May being MVP favorite, supposedly one of the better quarterbacks in the league, this should really have been a blowout by a wider margin. There was a rough ball security theme going on with the Patriots offense. I don't know how impressed I can be by that offensive unit. The defense is legit. The defense might lead them to farther than they should be. But how impressed can I be by these New England Patriots? Final game of the wild card, and probably the most, you kind of expected it. Texans 30, Steelers 6. The Texans played like how I expected them to in the last quarter of the game, and Aaron Rodgers got flattened for maybe what ended up being the final game of his career. And obviously Mike Tomlin was like, you know what? This is my time to go out. He actually resigned as coach, which is just the last thing I might have expected. I expected him. He would never have gotten fired. There's too much mutual respect. There's too much on his resume for the Steelers to just outright fire him. But, I mean, he's out as coach now, and it's because of this game. But a note of the game is that I noticed, especially in the first three quarters, was that the Texans would drive pretty deep before, a common C.J. Stroud mistake. But this left the Steelers' offense deep into their own zone, and they just could not drive against this aggressive defense. And that was the reason why there was no scoring in that first part. That's a reason why the Steelers just couldn't get anything going. It was almost a blessing for the Texans that C.J. Stroud kept making mistakes, especially by the fact that they were already up in the game, 7-6 for the most part. If C.J. Stroud kept making those mistakes, but then the defense could just keep him going, I honestly thought there was a point in this game that I was like, hey, this game's going to end 7-6, and it's going to be a convincing win by the Texans. But C.J. Stroud's got to step it up, and we're going to get into that shortly. So now for the pursuit, I guess inaugural. I guess this is the first time we're doing it. The premier divisional round predictions. In the AFC, we'll start out. Bills-Broncos. I have the Bills winning 20-17 in this game in Denver. The Broncos, they dipped 8 places to 22nd in the rush EPA in the league following the injury of J.K. Dobbins. But, Buffalo still can't stop the run. This has been a recent trend for the Broncos defense that they have a 244 pass yard average, and they only hold their opponents to 8-3 for touchdown interception ratio. But I really still expect, a heavy Josh Allen rush game due to a great secondary by Denver and the fact that the Bills don't really have true weapons. And the Broncos, especially with Bo Nix, are just still unproven in the playoffs, in my opinion. And the Bills can attack the middle of the field, which is going to be the biggest disadvantage with Denver, even though they have that great secondary. So I think Bills are going to edge this out. And I think this is going to be a tight game, but I think it's going to be one that wasn't really exciting to watch just because it's going to be sloppy football. It's going to really be more of a chess match than anything. But I have the Bills winning this game in a close one score-wise. Patriots-Texans, as much as I want to go Texans for the win, I think that, Patriots are going to win 13-7. Look, the Texans have an amazing defense. And May is already the 4th most sacked quarterback in the league. So I think that the key to this game becoming Texans 13-7 over the Patriots is that the Texans defense plays efficient and they can keep May down and reduce his time to throw. But CJ Stroud just looks so rough in that wild card game, even with just the slightest bit of pressure. And with the Patriots being 10th in pressure rate in the NFL this year, I think that Stroud's going to be completely demolished here if he was, pressured slightly by the Steelers and losing his way there. And the Texans are 30th in the league for pass block win rate. So defensive battle here. I don't think there's going to be there might be a fluke touchdown by both teams, but this is going to be one that is just, again, a tight game, not an exciting one. And that just might be the story of the AFC this year. So then my prediction for the AFC Conference Championship matchup would be the Buffalo Bills go into Gillette Stadium to play the Patriots. I will not make a prediction because I have to see if that happens first, obviously. Now for the NFC divisional predictions to end off the 4th and 4th segment, the Seahawks versus San Francisco 49ers. I got Seahawks 28-13. The Seahawks offense is lethal, and the defense is even more lethal. And I know people are still like, oh, can you trust Sam Darnold? It's the 49ers. The Eagles should have won against them, and we're going to get into that later. They're going to lose guys. They don't have George Kittle anymore. They're going to have to rely on basically solely Christian McCaffrey. And, that 12th man atmosphere in the playoffs, especially in the divisional round, I don't see this game being in conversation. Seahawks take it from the very beginning. 49ers score late. Seahawks to the conference championship. Now then we have Rams, Chicago Bears. And this is going to be probably my most looked forward to game of the divisional matchups here. But I have Rams winning 31-21 over the Cardiac Bears. And the thing is, if the Bears give up just a little too many points to the Rams early in the game, it's over. The only thing I can see being an issue, especially for the Rams, is that it's going to be a cold, windy night in Chicago. Obviously, that's going to be a disadvantage for the indoor SoFi Stadium merchants, but electric offense can beat that defense. But if the Bears can win this game, which, honestly, I'm kind of hoping for it, then it's time to have an uncomfortable conversation about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. But I don't see it happening. I think that we're going to have 2 divisional matchups for the Super Bowl game. And NFC Conference Championship matchup will be an NFC West matchup. That'll be pretty fun. Rams Seahawks to go to the Super Bowl is going to be an elite game, and definitely more fun than Patriots Bills. So, yeah, that's my predictions on the divisional round. I hope they're true, just for my personal narrative's sake, but if not, it's all right. I want to move on to my stick on the ice, the first hockey segment of 2026. And the main topic, and maybe really only my only topic of the day and of the week, is the Anaheim Ducks. They began 11-3-1 through the first 15 games. They averaged 4 goals per average. They were just this elite scoring team. They had Leo Carlsson, Cutter Gauthier. I hate him, Quitter Gauthier, but they were just on a tear when it comes to scoring. But then they have just been on this free fall. Fewer goals. They ended up flip-flopping, win-loss schedule pattern. And now they've been 1-9-2 since mid-December. And they're currently on a 9-game losing streak as I speak. Leo Carlsson, I just mentioned him. He was an early promising, he's probably going to finish top 5 in points. He only has had 6 points in the last 15 games. And the team has been outscored 45 goals to 22 over that stretch. And now they're allowing 5 goals a game. So they used to put up 4 goals on average, and now they're allowing 5. And so even if that early, we're going to score 1 billion per game team was against the opponents they've been against, they're still going to lose those games. It's just not efficient hockey. And this begins with the decline of goalie Lucas Dostal, who has been averaging .887 save percentage, and he's allowing 3.25 goals against the average. And not to mention Cutter, putting up no numbers in the stat sheet either. The Ducks have just quickly plummeted from a sure playoff spot to a fringe wild card spot, and they're struggling with that. And they have a long 4 points out of that first wild card spot to the San Jose Sharks. And now the Blackhawks, who now have Bedard back, and they're probably going to start surging up to hopefully get that wild card spot back. They're tied with the Ducks. So this is going to be a continuation of that free fall for the Anaheim Ducks. Now I kind of want to point out just some general information I read in an ESPN article by Arda Ocal about this NHL season so far. So this Ocal pointed out that this season has been a historical one in hockey. 26.1% of games, that's slightly over the quarter amount of games so far, have been going past regulation, which is, if that can hold, that'll be a record in the shootout era of NHL hockey. It's been a very tight season. And that can even be backed up by the numbers with their, over a quarter of the games going past regulation. But at the same time, despite, games going to shootout, games going to overtime more often, especially this season, the opposite trend has been happening. This could be the 5th straight 200 4-plus goal victory season across the league if the trends of blowouts happening in this season continue, which is just nuts. So 1, it's the tightest season in the NHL history, at least in the shootout era. But 2, it's also a season that we're just seeing so many blowouts. So it's really just back and forth when it comes to hockey this year. And it's been a really exciting season, and you can just see by the tight race going on for the playoffs. Obviously, we just talked hockey. I want to shift gears over to the Philadelphia Flyers, and they are still holding on to that 3rd spot in the Metropolitan Division. And it is just extremely close and nail-biting. Right now, they have 52 points, and they're tied with the Capitals. I mean, they're 2 games behind them, though, to be fair, and they're a single point above the Penguins. They've had 44 games played so far this year, and they're still going to be a game or 2 behind the top 2 Metro. But, I mean, so there's kind of somewhat an advantage there despite being, points behind, but they're right there in the thick of the wild card, but they really want to hold on to this Metro spot. And if you want to look at recent games, the past back-to-back stretch against the Tampa Bay Lightning it just shows the Bullies have a ways before they really think about truly contending. And I mean, there was just misfiring on special teams, stalling in the power play. They out-hit the Lightning 32-10, but they can't win. They can't win against this team, and they're getting blown out. The Lightning go 50% on their power plays. And physical hockey just is not the only answer for the Flyers. Like I just said, they've out-hit the Lightning 32-10. The Lightning were playing clean hockey. But both Vladar and Ursan are both slammed by the Lightning. And Rick Tocchet's saying that Michkov's head's in the gutter and he's easily checked out. Just please, for the sake of Philadelphia sports, the sake of bringing hockey back to the mainstream in Philadelphia, please, Lord, please let there be no collapse in these Philadelphia Flyers. And this starts out with the fact that our power play is 15th in the league. It's pretty bad, especially with Drysdale being hurt, and he's going to miss time. And just overall, since 2020 to 21 season, the Flyers have had just a combined worst in the league power play unit. And that's 14.7% success rate combined in those past few years. So the key might be they need to maximize the amount of confident and quick puck handlers they have on the ice at all times. And maybe they should add another forward to that lineup, especially with the power play unit. I'm not sure if the defensemen in the power play are strong enough. Cam York is leading the power play with 0.8 goals expected for defensemen, and that's just not even close to cutting it for the offensive firepower that we need to turn this trend around. An article from Jacob Russell of Broad Street Hockey suggested a potential 5-forward power play unit. Obviously, you're going to have TK, Zegras, Michkov, Tippett, and then maybe another center, maybe a defensive center. Just maybe an unorthodox change in play could potentially lead to more scoring. Maybe it'll potentially lead to kind of the revolution of this Flyers power play, hopefully. I'm not sure if that would work. Now it's time to get to the main event of the podcast, and that is the most recent news, most recent game, my wild card reaction to the Eagles losing at home against the 49ers. This whole season has been a wreck. I kept telling my friends, especially, that I was almost glad that the season's finally over. I mean, first of all, we're 11-6, so that's already like the expectations were not there. And I don't know. I really do not think that resting the Stars in that final game was a bad move. I thought it was smart. We were an offense, especially the offensive line, that was just riddled with injury. And we could not risk like the Washington third string guys trying to kill Jalen Hurts. It was not going to be worth it. Or even the receivers. We didn't want, A.J. Brown being out like he was 2 years ago in the playoffs against the Buccaneers. It's just not worth it. That's not an investment that you want to have. That's not the key. And I don't want to blame Nick Sirianni for trying that. I think second seed, third seed, we were probably going to lose this game anyway. And it all starts with Kevin Patullo. I mean, just the most predictable coordinator in the league. The same exact routes every time. I mean, I know there's the joke about, up the middle, AJ deep ball, then we're going to punt. But it's just, it's true. It was proven true. I don't know how many times this season that I'm going to see a team disregard the run, disregard design plays for the quarterback, and then 3rd and 26, they're going to run with Will Shipley, third best running back on our team, not Tank Bigsby, who, funny enough, was probably the star when it came to that game for the Eagles. Tank Bigsby had a great stretch of like 4 runs in a row where he averaged like 7 or 8 yards. And then they're not even going to bring him in the rest of the game. It just makes no sense. I get Saquon's the power back. You want to use him. He was the offensive player of the year. But it's just like, if you're going to tease Tank Bigsby and he's actually working, why are you going to just show him for potential and then just slip him away like it's a bull with a matador? Just keep using him. And actually, design plays that are going to go over the middle. Design plays that aren't going to... Those final plays, I keep seeing people blame Jalen Hurts about it. And, the fact that he threw into triple coverage. You check the All-22 stats. You check the All-22 film, and you'll see that no one was open. Half this game, no one was open. Half the season, most of the season, actually, no one was open. You can nitpick. You can check you can be on your TV. You can yell, dude, this guy was open. This guy was open. This guy was open. There's no one open. There's absolutely no one open. Yes, sometimes Hurts has missed open guys, but not as bad as the fact that he's expecting no one to be open, and that's just the thing. And then you want him to use his legs, and you complain about him not using his legs, and it's like that. There's so much contradiction, one in Philly media, but also just there's so much contradiction in the fact that they think that Hurts is limited. They think this and that, but he's gone in the 2 years that he's actually had a competent coordinator. One was his basically rookie year. Then the next one was Super Bowl appearance. Then the next time we had a competent coordinator, all of a sudden we won the Super Bowl. So it's just how much flip-flopping do you want to do about how good of a quarterback he is? And A.J. Brown's got to, if A.J. Brown catches one of those 5 drops that he had, one of those 5 crucial second down, third down drops that he had, we would have won that game. I think we would have won that game with just one more catch. Obviously, Smith missing the game-winning catch that probably would have brought us up and brought us to the score. Even though it was right in his hands, that was pretty rough. And I hate to hate on Smith, but he had some bad drops this game too. Just the receiving core has to be locked in too, especially when you watch the film again. You see Hurts is hitting them right in the hands. But how much of this can be expected when there's just no diversity in the play calling? There's nothing. There's nothing going on for the Eagles. I'm so glad this season's over because it's just making me so mad. And now Hurts is all of a sudden he's a bottom 10 quarterback again. And it's just terrible propaganda. And Kevin Patullo was finally fired. Maybe 18 weeks too late. And I think he's actually going to be demoted. I don't know if he was fired, but they're going to demote him into probably an offensive analyst job like he used to be or whatever Sirianni wants. But now the offensive coordinator job is wide open. War is over for the most part. But now the decision lies with Sirianni to hire someone good. And maybe we'll get a home run like Vic Fangio, who he won't want to leave the Eagles, and he won't want to pursue a head coaching job, pursue a defensive coordinator role somewhere else. He just wanted to be our defensive play caller for the love of the game. We need to find a guy like that on the offensive side. And so I think the options stand with this. These are my options, my preferred offensive coordinators. Obviously, my number one, and I will say this even to the day they actually hire someone and interview someone, Todd Monken, the former offensive coordinator for the Ravens. The numbers are there. He led the Lamar MVP season, the most recent one, and then he led him when he was an MVP runner-up 2 years ago. And I think that game plan is going to fully mesh for Jalen Hurts. They were 6th in offense in 2023, 1st in offense in 2024. Obviously, he had a rough year in Baltimore last year, but there was just a lot going on last year in general for Baltimore. So I don't know if you can really point that finger at him for why the offense was not that consistent last year. And I don't think just because of that rough season, and also he's 59, I believe, I don't know if he's going to get a head coaching job right now, especially with the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay coaching tree kind of being, the main thing in the league. Right now, everyone wants to hire a head coach that's like 35 plus. They don't want to hire a guy that's 59. So Monken might be a guy that stays with us for the long term. And this is the thing. Every offense besides last year, that he has commanded since 2021 has been top 10 in offense. 2022, Jalen Hurts is just begging to be unleashed again if Todd Monken is hired. So, and then obviously, probably the number one for every other Eagles fan is Mike McDaniel. I mean, that's just obvious. He's a great mind. He's a great coach. Obviously, I don't think he's going to have a head coaching gig in the next few years just because of the whole situation in Miami. But he can balance a run and pass game, which is what was sorely missed with KP. So he would be the exact yang to Kevin Patullo's yin. That is if Sirianni has a relationship with him. That is if Vic Fangio wants Mike McDaniel in. It's going to be a question mark there. But he might be the most ideal candidate. I personally want Monken the most, but there's a conversation there. Third on my list would probably be Jared Johnson. They almost made him coordinator. I think it was his most recent year. They almost made him coordinator this most recent year. He's the quarterback coach for Houston. He already has a pretty good relationship with Jalen Hurts. He made Kirk Cousins All-Pro in his year in Minnesota. And I honestly think that out of my preferred list, and I'll get to the rest of those guys soon, but I think Jared Johnson's going to be the most likeliest on this list, especially if CJ Stroud turns it around in the divisional round and if the Texans make a run to the conference championship. I think that we absolutely should hire Jared Johnson, but we got to wait and see because I got two guys above him. Cliff Kingsbury is a name that is always going to be thrown around when it comes to offensive coordinators, and especially a big attractive thing for Philadelphia is the fact that his head coaching gigs have not worked out well. He probably would stay here for a few years. He got fired from Washington, but he can elevate a mobile quarterback, and that can bring back 2022, 2021 Jalen Hurts when he was at his peak. But the only issue and complaint with him is that the fact that I've heard that his playbook is too easily found out and it's too college-esque, so I'd be worried that it would lead to another every receiver is covered. But great offensive coordinator. I would love to have him. He's probably fourth on my list. Other names to throw out there would be Davis Webb, the Broncos quarterback coach, who has worked to grow Bo Nix into a player that is having a successful season. Again, I'm not really that sold on Bo Nix, though, which kind of makes me a little iffy on Davis Webb, but he is open for an offensive coordinator job. He interviewed in Baltimore, so interview him. Let's see what happens there. Nate Scheelhaas, the Rams passing game coordinator. I mean, they just have the most explosive offense in the league. I mean, Matt Stafford, MVP talks, and obviously you have Puka, you have Devontae Adams. It's kind of easy to have an explosive offense there, but this is a Sean McVay student. Really anything that comes out of that coaching tree would be pretty good, and he'll be a head coach candidate soon at a young age. So that's kind of my biggest take back with wanting him, because I think he's like 35. He's Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, he's going to be hired in probably 3 years as a head coach. And God forbid we have a great season. If we hire him, he's going to be fired right away. So it's a gamble with him because you just don't want Jalen Hurts to have his 9th coordinator and then have to have his 10th next year. Zach Robinson, the former offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. And this is a long shot, and this is one that I actually haven't heard anyone talk about yet. But he led the explosive rise of Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. He's a former passing game coordinator of the Los Angeles Rams. Only issue is he might, head coaching talks pretty soon, but he is a Shanahan McVay student. You can really never go wrong with these guys. But if I had to pick who the most likely offensive coordinator would be, and he's not on my list just because of his track record and as a head coach at least, but he has a pre-existing relationship with Nick Sirianni, that would probably be Kevin Stefanski. And I've actually heard people say that they want to grab take away Sirianni as a head coach, which I don't agree with. I don't think that Sirianni should be fired. I think that if the coaching dilemma is so bad next year, maybe you consider firing him, but his success just speaks for himself. I've heard people say that Stefanski should be our head coach. They should get rid of Sirianni, put him in, and then grab one of the guys that I prefer. But, I mean, if they want to do that, they can, but Stefanski has a relationship with Sirianni, and obviously the Browns-Eagles connection is pre-existing. They've had joint practices, so if I have to be honest, it probably will be Stefanski. I won't be the happiest camper, but I'll come around. I'm sure I'll come around. Now, Philadelphia 76ers, to end off the Phanatic segment, they're holding 5th in the East, 22-16, but this season has certainly turned itself around from the sure disaster that I thought I was going to end up being after that 4-0 start. There was a tight loss to Toronto on night one of a back-to-back, but the Sixers rallied and put up 80 points in the first half in the second night to beat the Raptors again, 115-102. And this was a vintage Maxey Embiid duo. And this is just fantastic. I mean, Embiid's playing back-to-backs. Let's talk about Joel Embiid. He's back to form. He's been averaging 26 and 8 since New Year's. And he's playing 33 minutes a night again. And his pace is coming back up. I know I was worried before about his pace and, his aggression not being there, but he's attacking the rim. He's been dunking again. Lou Williams, former Sixers great, said that he's not a blast in the past anymore. Embiid is a bruiser center again. And if he keeps improving slowly but steadily, like he has been this season, man, the Sixers are going to be on a great track down the line, let me tell you. And if you really want to get into overreaction field, VJ Edgecombe is a young Jimmy Butler for the Sixers. He's beginning to take more on-ball responsibilities from Tyrese Maxey. He can play the floor general. He can bounce off Embiid in the two-man game. Not to mention that Brook can absolutely breathe change in pace manipulation. Not to mention the headband. I mean, he's just a spitting image of Jimmy Butler, both in his play and his appearance. And Paul George himself said that, this is quotes here, a lot can be thrown at him, talking about VJ, and he has been producing. He has been clutch in big moments. He's definitely a guy that isn't afraid of the moment. In the intangibles, VJ Edgecombe is leading the league in loose balls recovered and is 8th amongst rookies in contested shots. So, VJ Edgecombe, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and even Paul George, we're all working together finally. They're winning games together. This is exciting. I think the future of Philadelphia sports, future of 76ers, I'll get that straight because the Flyers are scaring me. The Eagles I don't want to talk about them until we hire a guy. Sixers on their way up, man. This is the team that no one even thought about coming into this year. No one even thought about them, that they were going to be okay this year, but they're on their way. I think they're going to be top 3 in the East. To finish out the return of the Pursuit Pod, Clemson student, obviously we got to talk about lost in the Pinstripe Bowl, but now Garrett Riley's fired, and we have a new offensive coordinator, which is almost a little bit of deja vu. Chad Morris, the guy who hasn't called a play exclusively since 2021. I'm going to create an article for the Tiger, again, going to come out in the next few days, which is talking about just Chad Morris, his overview, and if he's a good candidate for Clemson. And, the numbers back it up. I'll take some bits and pieces from my article. So he came in 2011. This is when the Dabo Swinney honeymoon period was beginning to fade away. Tigers were 6-7, unironically. They lost the bowl game, and the offense was messy. Defense was below mid. And I really think that that's a similar situation to today's Clemson team, except, the defensive unit is now stronger and they actually have NFL players, top 2 round talent. They even have new transfer portal reworks, which I'm going to get into a little later. But the difference from the 2010 Tigers to 2011 when Morris took over was they actually recorded 106 more total yards of offense. They went from 86th in 2010 in total offense to 26th. And then they were number 9 in 2012, improving nearly another 100 yards, and then 10th in 2013, and then they started to plummet out. But I mean, this is high energy. This is high energy offense that Chad Morris at least brought to the Tigers back then. They won 10 or more games each of those 4 seasons that he was there. They won 3 bowl games. And the biggest question, though, we know what he can do. We know what Chad Morris can bring. He's been fired twice since Clemson, especially because he took Arkansas's head coaching job. And he resigned from a high school coaching position when they had a historically bad team. My biggest worry for Chad Morris is that this is more of just Dabo saying, hey, you guys want change, here's your change, but we're going to do it my way. And that's a little scary to me. I'm just scared that Chad Morris, the fact that he doesn't have a lot of great experience in the past few years, I'm not sure if the tale from 15 years ago can translate into the tale today. It all starts with, more in the transfer portal for the offense, which, again, I hate to say I hate the transfer portal, but that's where it begins. But the biggest thing about this, especially I know college is different, but the fact that we're seeing NFL teams start to look at head coaches that were there for a long time. John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin both fired or both resigned after so long, and after seeming like guys that even if they had a bad year, you just could not get rid of them. There might be a conversation coming, especially if this Chad Morris debacle doesn't work out, that Dabo might have to take the boot. He might have to take the buyout, because I don't know if I'm the biggest optimist of this Chad Morris hire. I think that there are better options, but I'll keep my optimism for when the season starts. But man, is this defense going to be good next year, because look at this transfer portal that Tom Allen's been cooking up. So many defensive backs. Corey Myrick from Southern Miss, his PFF grade is above 80. Safety Jerome Carter III from Old Dominion, he's a ball hawk. Tied for most interceptions in FBS with a Clemson player, he had 6. Elliott Washington II from Penn State, he has some high speed. Cornerback Donovan Starr, who has had limited playing time at Auburn, but he has upside and he has some good athleticism. And then the 2 guys I'm probably most excited about for this defense would be Luke Farelli, linebacker from Cal, who was the ACC Defensive Freshman of the Year last year, and defensive end London Merritt from Colorado, who was named to the PFF All-Freshman team and had 8 tackles for loss. As a true freshman, he'll be here for a long time until the NFL draft hits, if he's that good. But he'll be here for a long time, and that's some good numbers. That's some good accolades to have on your side. And for the offense, with Dabo and Chad Morris this year, again, it's a question mark of who the quarterback's going to be. I really think it's time to look for the portal at that. I thought we were going to get Lagway, but I guess not. We got Chris Johnson Jr., running back from SMU, who averaged 7.1 yards per carry and under 200 snaps, which is pretty promising, especially if he's the starter. He's going to have more than 200 snaps, obviously. And if he can be a near automatic first down or a near automatic 2nd and 2 player, then that's some good stuff. That's some good stuff to look out for with Clemson. It's really great to see that we're actually going to use the portal, as much as I have my ethical concerns about it. To finish out the Clemson Corner, as we're in this kind of transitionary period in college athletics where baseball is not yet started up, and it's really just kind of basketball season, the thick of basketball season, with ranked play, with conference play starting up, Clemson basketball team is finally ranked. They're number 22 as of the week that this is being recorded. And this is their first time being ranked since the end of the 2024-25 season. And right now, as of their Boston College win last night, they're on a 9-game winning streak, and they have had perfect ACC play so far with a 5-0 record. That includes a double-digit win over Notre Dame and a near-blown lead against SMU, but a late-game stand against a ranked SMU team, mind you. Other teams that were ranked ended up dropping out of the rankings because of early conference play, which always is the biggest question mark when it comes to teams that are in that 15 to 25 range, and even the teams that are looking for consideration. Right now, they're going to go into a game on Saturday against a 30 vote of consideration Miami, Florida team at home this Saturday. Right now, the Clemson defense is allowing only 65.6 points per game, which makes them by far the best defense in the ACC. And Miami, Florida, that's going to be a quad 1, high quad 2 matchup that we're going to have here. And so just to recap the resume of the Tigers so far. We have a quad one record of 4-2. We have losses to obviously Alabama and BYU, both away, neutral court. So not the biggest tacked losses for us. And I think they're actually good losses besides blowing leads there in the BYU game and then not getting up. I think the Bama loss was a good one, though, because we stormed back. Quad 2, we're 3-0. Quad 3, we're 2-1 because of an away loss against Georgia, which looked like a good loss then, but it's not really aging that well. But I don't think it's really going to do anything for tournament hopes. I don't think it's going to do anything for seeding considerations. I think it's fine. And now we're 6-0 in quad 4 wins. So we have wins everywhere we need wins. And we still have 4 wins in the quad 1 territory. So right now we're 28th in net ranking, and it's looking up for Clemson basketball. So Brad Brunell, this might be the year, man. I don't know if it's going to be championship year, but Elite 8, Final 4 run is in the works, and I'm hoping all in, man. All in. So I won't really have a fantasy segment this week because fantasy football is over, but I would like to inform everyone that I have won the consolation bracket, and so I will be able to choose my pick for next year's league draft, which is kind of our incentive to keep going in the consolation bracket. So I have to do a lot of research, but I'm kind of aiming towards pick 4 or 5 or 6. I'll be in that range. So, yeah, what a great week of sports. It's been a great past month, honestly, of sports. Again, I hope everyone had a great winter holiday. Happy New Year. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. And I hope that we all have a really good 2026. I think this has potential to be the best year for all of us. So, without further ado, this has been the Pursuit Pod, hosted by Calvin Lymper. Go Tigers, go Sixers, go Flyers, and eventually, if we can figure it out, go Birds.